Children of the night. What music they make.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter. We are on week 3 of Fang Fest here, talking about George Romero's 1977 underseen classic, Martin. Damn, Gina, if you know what I'm talking about. And we have with me the legend, the man, the myth, the dude that just got done streaming like 5 minutes ago on his channel, Rockin' Robbie Phillips. What up, brother?
Dude, so excited to be here for the second time in my life on YouTube talking about one of my favorite George A. Romero movies. One of my favorite George A. Romero movies. My favorite Martin movie that he did. But yeah, dude, love this movie. Got this badass like collection. What's crazy is this is the second time I've talked about this movie. I used to have the DVD. Sold the DVD because it was like I sold it on eBay for like $80, like in the mid 2000s. That's a lot of money back then, right? So I got this like super special edition, but it's region B. So it only plays in my living room. So I've never really absorbed the special features because I do that mostly in bed. Right. And yeah, it's got a big book with it and everything, but like great set, great movie. Excited to be here and talk about it. Excited for Fang Fest. Thank you for putting my personal favorite vampire in your intro, Count Chocula.
Hell yeah. I thought of you. Hell yeah, man. What, you got the 4K? I grabbed the 4K. I'll just say,
no,
I think we have the same. It's the same edition though, right? Like I think it has the same special features. They're fire. They're fire. There's like an hour-long featurette. There's 4 commentaries, which I haven't had a chance to listen to any, but I think one of them. But it's excellent.
Oh yeah, it's a 4K. So it's a 3-disc set. It's 4K. The Blu-ray, which is still in my Blu-ray player, and then the soundtrack, like the CD soundtrack.
Oh,
and then they're like these, they always put those bullshit postcards in there, and then there's a book.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah, mine just came with the disc, but I still think I paid like $30-$40 for this fucking thing. But well, with it, and it didn't come with a Blu-ray either. Just
there are words in the
commentary. Bruno,
what's up, buddy?
Commentary.
You still cut out.
Listen to the commentary.
I didn't. I think I listened to one of them, but there's like 4 of them. There's like a couple with Romero. There's one with Savini in it. There's one with like a film historian, which I usually do dig those things, but I haven't checked it out. Partially because I would watch them, but I've got my kid in the living room. I would usually, like if I'm doing stuff around the house, I'll throw them in on the headphones, but she'll be out in the living room watching the movie like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So I haven't had a chance to listen to them yet.
Did Savini do the effects for the? Was this early? Savini?
Yeah, this was the 3rd movie that he did effects on. He'd known Romero for a long time, and he was supposed to do the effects on Night of the Living Dead, but he got drafted. I don't know if he was drafted or he was just called in because he was enlisted or whatever, but he went to Vietnam. And then this is the first movie that he did with Romero, and he did a bunch of them. And this is the first film that he ever acted in.
Wow, I didn't know that. Now that kind of gives it more brownie points, to be honest.
Yeah. This is also the first feature-length film that Colonel Sanders was ever in. I think it was the only movie Colonel Sanders ever did.
The Colonel Sanders?
No, I'm just joking. But that one dude, he looks like Colonel Sanders for a good chunk of the movie, whenever he's in white. But this was I think it was like the 4th movie that he'd done after Night of the Living Dead. He didn't have any hits between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. And this is the one he put out right before it. And I kind of debated whether or not to put this for Fang Fest. And then as soon as I threw it in, I was like a half hour into it. I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm so glad that I did, because it is like after the Universal era, and then the Hammer era, like the world was vampired out. You know what I mean? There was just vampire had become a thing that you needed to either spoof at, you needed to comment on it, or you needed to put a twist on it. And for me, this is like, it's the perfect, what it does with the vampire lore. I love the way it functions as a serial killer movie. I love in the way that it kind of functions as a slasher movie in a way. We can debate that, but it's got a lot of elements that a slasher would have. And this is pre-Halloween. So this is between that Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw, and Halloween era, and it's one of the first serial killer, one of the first serial killer movies that it
Did this
also
come
kind
out?
of functions as a slasher. There's Peeping Tom in the 60s, but there's a big dead zone between there and this.
This come out before not Hardcore Henry, but that with Michael
Yeah.
Rooker. This came out before that.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Yeah, a
Portrait,
few
yeah.
years before that. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But Robbie, I wanted to just
Yeah.
ask you, man, just to kick it off for us with your kind of thoughts on George A. Romero, since we're talking about one of the legends, one of the masters of horror. Kind of give me your thoughts on the man's career.
Well, I love that you started FangFest, of course, with fuck, we got the slides already. Shit. I love that you started off FangFest with Nosferatu, the remake, right? Like again, and like that was cool. And then you did the Universal and Hammer Dracula, and then you started talking about Martin kind of being in this zone in between.
Mm-hmm.
And George A. Romero is a filmmaker that I think is always ahead of his time, right? Night of the Living Dead is made decades before the success of things like The Walking Dead and 28 Days Later, right? Martin, to me, is kind of like a predecessor to the 80s vampire movies, right? So we're talking about that spot in between.
Right.
And
because once it gets to the 80s, it kind of goes full satire, where they're like really comedy. They know all about vampire movies. And this has a touch of that.
They're all self-aware, right?
Yeah.
They're all Wes Craven, self-aware. Like we know what vampires are and all this kind of stuff, right? But Martin kind of played in this valley, you're right, between the Universal and the Hammer films and that wave of the 80s, and there's nothing like Martin.
Right.
Do I think it's his best film? I don't know. But George A. Romero, I've said this before, he's a maverick, he's a renegade. He never sold out. He always kept his vision pure for the most part in all of his films. His career suffered because of that. He didn't get rich off of this shit, right? He didn't even copyright Night of the Living Dead, the biggest movie and one of the most important movies in 20th century American horror cinema, right? Is Night of the Living Dead. Such a great movie. But he always made movies on his own terms, and he did what he did. Martin, to me, is an underappreciated classic of his. My favorite movie of his might be Day of the Dead or Night Riders, to be honest.
I was going through his filmography. I'm like, surely no one's going to pick Night Riders. I'll skip that one. I've never even seen it. That's not like Night Riders. That's not like has nothing to do with the TV show, obviously, right?
No. Do you know what Night Riders is about?
No.
Oh, dude. So, okay. First of all, Ed Harris is in it, right? He's the main guy. Tom Savini's in it. He's the antagonist in the movie, right? It is about a traveling Renaissance fair of bikers who put on Renaissance fair style jousting events, but on motorcycles. And it becomes very popular. But the thing is, Ed Harris, who's the leader of the pact, has this like idea that there's a sense of honor. He's like Arthurian, right? You know, he's like, we have the Knight's Code of Honor. He's like really getting into the shit. And then Tom Savini is into the fame. There's a moment where Tom Savini's posing and he's just got like something over his dick. It's like, it's like sleazy, fucking hairy sexy, which I'm not quite into, but other people can be. That's fine. Night Riders is great. Y'all, what a weird concept for a movie, right? Though, right?
Oh, totally. Well, the one that I was hearing about in watching the special features before this, he had an idea. And I think it was either between this other idea and Martin. Luckily, he went with Martin, but he wanted to do a Bigfoot movie where it was with a little person with giant feet. It's like, what? What? I mean, he was on some weird shit in the 70s for sure.
No, but he's great. I love that he always stuck to his vision, even at the cost of his own career. He's funny. I feel like I know him because I've seen so many documentaries and special features and interviews with him. You know, I never got to meet him. It's a tragedy. He's mostly known, of course, for the zombie films, the Dead films, which are amazing, especially the first three. Land of the Dead is all right, and Diary of the Dead is pretty solid, I think. Survival of the Dead's not good, but you know, he didn't have much to work with back then. But to me, Martin really soars. Creepshow soars, and Dark Half to me is another underrated George A. Romero movie and one of the best Stephen King adaptations.
Yeah.
When we lost George A. Romero, we lost a legend, and it's unfortunate that they couldn't work out the schedule for him to be a part of the Masters of Horror TV series, man.
Yeah, that is a bummer, dude. Just like you said, just like watch interviews with him. hearing people talk about him, like it's a lot like Wes Craven. It's like one of the guys that's known for all this crazy, gnarly, like horrific stuff. And he's like the sweetest guy, just like the nicest person, seems super genuine. Even in this movie, like he just comes across in his performance. Link, did you know that was him playing the priest in this?
The one having the one reading from the Bible, or the one that was having like tea and shit?
The one smoking cigarettes and drinking all their wine up and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like such a like naturalistic performance. And his charm just comes through. He's barely in the movie. He's in it for like just a few minutes. But yeah, he just seems so likable. And he's a guy like I think I mentioned this before when we talked about him, but Robbie, when you and I did our top 5 favorite horror directors, like he didn't make my list. He made your list. And if I were to redo it now, he would definitely make my list. I wasn't as in
Station.
Totally. But yeah, I wasn't as into the zombie movies, his zombie stuff before. I always loved Night of the Living Dead. But wait, some of the issues that I had with Dawn of the Dead, I have the same issues with this, but I get them now. I kind of get why the film meanders at
This
times.
is a working man's movie, man. This is like working class filmmaking is what George Romero does. And when his movies have like a studio polish, they don't feel as authentic. Like even something like The Dark Half and Monkey Shines, by the way, which is the best movie about a killer monkey I've ever seen. A jealous killer monkey, like single white female, but single white monkey, I guess. I don't fucking know. But like it's but when he has this like Hollywood shine on his movies, they feel less authentic to me, man. And there's something about even The Crazies, which is not as good as The Dark Half, but there's still something about it that feels made by hand, right?
Yeah.
Made by hand.
I think that's one of the things that it took me. It's like it's an acquired taste, or it was for me, getting into his earlier films. Like The Crazies is the other one that's kind of most on this level as far as the budget and the look of it. I mean, it feels completely different. This is way more intimate of a film. But yeah, going back and like watching this now, it's kind of interesting, like how dated it seemed to me when I saw it for the first time a few years ago, and how much more like it doesn't seem that dated. It is in certain ways, but for the most part, it's not. But the reason why, and you pointed out, the reason why I named this episode is Martin, George Romero's best film, is because he thinks it is. I always thought that was interesting. Like this is his personal favorite film out of all of them that he's made, and I could kind of see why. First of all, it's his wife, or I don't know if they got married, but they were together for 29 years.
Yeah, I think they did get married, but I think they got divorced shortly before his death. I think.
Okay. Well, I think that might play a role in it, possibly, because she plays a prominent role in it. She's the cousin figure in this. He's in the movie. They made it with like 5 or 6 people. These are in like people's houses that are from the neighborhood and friends of friends and things like that. On Wikipedia, it says it cost $250,000 to make. But in the special features, the producer says it was a $75,000 movie, which is just wild. And it's just like a really intimate, personal movie. If it's not his best movie, it's his best character. Like Martin's the best character out of any of the movies that he's made that I can think of. Just kind of looking at it by far, at least he's my favorite, I would say.
I would agree with that. Honestly, I think it's the best character study he's ever done. I wouldn't say that George A. Romero's characters are his strong suit.
Right.
Some of his characters can have some nuance to them, and he writes badass characters. Ben in Night of the Living Dead is an amazing character, right? But he needs the right actor, right? And I can't remember the name of the character, but Ken Foree plays him in Dawn of the Dead. That character is great. Peter, right. I think is that Peter?
I don't know. There's a Peter in there, man, but I think Peter.
I know, right?
Peter might be Flyboy. He might be the same one in the same. I don't know though.
Yeah, maybe. But characters aren't necessarily like character studies are definitely not his strong suit, right?
I don't know if did he do another one that's even like this? You know what I mean? That has this kind of character study feel. I feel like no,
not this raw. I mean, Dark Half is maybe a little bit like that, but that's mostly Stephen King. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's Romero trying to make some money. You know, and he had a good relationship with Stephen King, right? They did Creepshow together, which is probably the most successful of his films. Right. Honestly, like that's a great film. And The Crazies, even though I don't necessarily like The Crazies that much, it is the prototype for Dawn of the Dead. Those ideas go into Dawn of the Dead, 100%. Yeah.
Ken Foree is Peter, by the way. You were spot on.
Cool, thank you. I always doubt myself sometimes, especially when I've had a lot of bourbon hanging out with Vaughn 82 for 2 hours before I came up here.
Yeah, which go check out that show, by the way. If you guys are into comics and pop culture, great conversation Robbie just had.
We talked a little bit about horror, man. It was cool. We were talking about Martin. Martin's good. I love Martin. Martin's great. But no, there's not a character. Yeah, we're talking about character. I don't. There's not a character that's so intensely focused. Most of his movies, even though there is a main character, it's an ensemble, right? And this one is him, right? And it's nuanced. It's not on the nose with what it's saying. It is maybe a little bit at times, but like it's not really that much on the nose about what it's really trying to do.
I think there's a ton of it, like thematically, that I wouldn't have got unless I saw it on the special features. And then when I did see it on the special features, I'm like, oh, I think I remember Robbie saying that when we reviewed it before, mainly about how, what is it like? The one thing I noticed is that the church is kind of being vampiric to the people. The church is dying, but it's like siphoning off the money from the people. You know what I mean? And then also just the town itself is dying, and that is all of the entities that siphon money from the rich and give it to the poor, or vice versa. Flip.
Yeah, and what like outdated, superstitious religious beliefs and from a family ingrained in a young person does.
Right.
Because what I love about Martin is it's an ambiguous film. Is he a vampire? Is he not? That's up to us. I met John Amblis, by the way, the guy who plays Martin in this movie. There's me and John. Good friend of the show. There's what he signed for me. And he signed it. There is no magic.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's like, because that's the point of the movie. He's like, the point of the movie is that it's up to you. Is he a vampire? Is he not? Like, that's the whole point. What really matters about this movie is what he told me. And he says, George said, what really matters about this movie is that this poor kid thinks he's a vampire.
Right.
He rebels against his family as far as the superstitious values. That throws in the church stuff, right? And the idea of like what superstition does to someone. Like, it doesn't matter that this kid doesn't believe in the superstition. The superstition from the family has ingrained itself into this kid.
Right.
And he's like living this out. Is he 84 years old or 82 or whatever the hell it is? Nobody knows. George and John said that George didn't know. He's like, no, I don't know if he is or isn't.
That's cool.
It's not the point of the movie.
2 questions. Did you ask him to put that quote on there? Or did he just do it? I love that. And the second question, I fucking forget. I forget what I was gonna say. Oh, what the hell was it? But what I do want to know, because like we watched this some years ago. I don't remember what you rated it. I don't think you were completely shitting on it, but I know you weren't a fan of it.
I wasn't. I don't remember being sold on it. I can't remember exactly what I rated it.
I just remember him and Fable, like they were starting to disappoint me at that point with movies like Henry and Martin.
Fable uses it as like, oh man, but we did that fucking Martin movie that one time.
I know the other night he was like, Martin fucking sucks.
Which I understand. Don't get me wrong. Like I get people's perspective when it comes to that. I totally do. I really do. I don't think it's a perfect movie for me. I love a lot of shit about it, but it's not perfect and it is dated. But what I wanted, how was the rewatch for you?
No, it was good. Yeah, I think we were also coming shortly off of you comparing Exorcist 3 to Quentin Tarantino. So
I will take that statement back.
But no, I will say my rewatch this time around, I saw it through a different lens and I was able to appreciate it more. I think what might have thrown me off about it, my first watch, honestly, was that it is different than any other vampire film out there. You know, there's really no intimate character study that kind of approaches it in a real way. Like it's always, you know, if it's like, it's always some fantastical and they've got powers and shit like that. Belief is, I think, like the core focus or one of the core themes of this movie, is because it's like if someone wants to believe something, you know, if they believe it enough, it doesn't matter if the facts are in their face, or that, you know, they're going to believe what they want to believe anyways, you know, just like the way the uncle believed that he was fucking Nosferatu. And, you know, his cousin didn't believe it. You know, he believed, I don't know if Martin really believed he was a vampire though. You know, that kind of confused me with his statements like there is no magic and shit like that. Clearly he was, he idolized vampires and vampirism, but I don't know if he himself believed he was a vampire or whether he was
Right.
just practicing. And
Which I
the
like.
way-
Because
Yeah.
you're right. He'll say one line, there is no magic. And then a minute later, he's like, I'm 84 years old. It's like, well, wait a
Yeah.
minute. What is your skincare regimen then? Like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on, Martin?
Well, when he says there's no magic, it's all science. Like he has to survive on blood. He has to kill. He's got to do that. He doesn't age, right? Or he ages slowly, right? But yeah, there's garlic, crosses,
Right.
God. Like that doesn't matter. There is no magic. There is no superstition. There is no supernatural.
The movie
is all-
tropes. The
yeah.
movie tropes don't exist. But
And
he
I
is
think that's
84
one of the
years old.
reasons why, and this is like a precursor to Near Dark that plays with the same kind of thing, where it's more of a viral thing and it's more practical and it's crosses don't work and garlic doesn't work and praying at somebody doesn't fucking work, right? I'm not saying it's an anti-spiritual movie. It's not, but it's an anti-religious movie, like for sure. Like it's like the superstition that comes with religion, right? So I don't know. Like I think he thinks he is, but is it because he is or because he got fooled into believing that he was?
Well,
right?
let me ask you guys this: since we're on this subject, the times that I'd watched the movie before, I just viewed it as every time the movie goes to black and white, that is a flashback, right? And it invites you to believe that, like, okay, like he's talking about like, oh, people have always been chasing me, and it's showing him in the present, and he's running from cops and shit, and then it's showing him in the past, and he's running from people with torches chasing him down in the streets. But now I see it this time, and I realize, oh, it totally could be. This is just his fantasy version of what's happening right now.
What's the first black and white scene you see?
The girl on the train.
Yeah. The fantasy of what he's going to see when he goes into that room.
Right. So what do you think?
Which is setting up that the black and white bits are all fantasy.
Or it could just be that is how it happened in the past. And now, so he's assuming that's how it's going to happen. And then he walks in and it doesn't. It doesn't go how it went before. So I love
the
like
ambiguously vampire duo is what it is, man.
How did you read it, Link? Like, which one of those did you go with?
I viewed it as him. Sorry, I heard the dogs. Glamorizing
the present. Okay.
Yeah, he's been in these are movies he's been. That's why he was like flipping out when the first chick didn't fall asleep right away. Like, you're supposed to fall asleep. Like they always fall asleep or whatever you're saying.
Like a fade to black type thing, right?
Yeah.
Where the kid's just obsessed with like the horror fiction or something, right?
Yeah, the idea. While I'm thinking of this, like saying the editing itself felt choppy, but overall theme was quite unique. If Martin is just a traumatized kid, as far as the editing go, I get what you're saying. Like to me, that there's a pacing issue in the second half of the film, but I think where some of that, where you might notice it, is because there's a 3.5 hour cut of this that exists. This movie, the director's cut, I think it's maybe 150 minutes. So I guess 2.5 hours. Which is insane, but I feel like that's what it is. They cut out like half of the film to make it what it is. So it's it does feel choppy, and it gives it this like slice of life kind of a feel, where it's just like you're just picking these little snippets of this guy's everyday life, which is part of the thing that I didn't like about it. Here, let me just say this while I'm thinking of it. This was my problem with Dawn of the Dead. At halfway through the movie, they're just like fucking off in the mall, and it's just like there's no sense of urgency. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And then it took me a while to realize, like, oh, it's because zombies are like this metaphor for death, and that's what you're doing. You're just living your everyday life, but eventually death is going to get you. Eventually, you're just like bored. Part of being the zombie apocalypse is that you're fucking bored, and part of being a vampire is that you're bored. You know what I mean? Which could lead the movie to possibly feel a little bit boring at times. But that's intentional, is the way I look at it. Do you guys feel that in Dawn of the Dead and this one?
I think, George A. Romero would always talk about his method of filmmaking is CYA, cover your ass, like cover as much as possible, get as many like tight shots. They were making money and financing being filmmakers, right? By making commercials in Pittsburgh, right? They were working class filmmakers. Like they're cutting together beer commercials and shit. And I remember like early editions of like George A. Romero films I had would have like some of his commercials on there, right? From Laurel 8 and all that kind of shit. And I would watch them and they're like, he just all these kind of tight shots. So that's what he did. Like George A. Romero is an editor. I think
Right.
he's more of an editor than he is like he's a great director, but he's great as an editor too. He like edited these first films. He did it all by hand, and he knew that if he covered a lot of shit, had tight shots of people just shuffling feet or like handing something off or just some kind of like think like a Mike
filling up that vial, like the beginning.
Yeah,
when you get that,
I love like if you feel like think of like a Mike Mignola comic where you have these little bits that just kind of like just an image take you back. Like he can affect pace and affect the story through having things to fit into like, oh, this scene needs to be extended. I can add in this shot. I can put the voiceover on that. I can do that. So I think this is a handmade film. This is a dude who's like on his own made like 4 or 5 films, like, you know, if that, like in a bunch of commercials, like it's a working class made by hand kind of thing. And I think that editing, which is also very 70s, especially in Martin, throws a lot of people off, man, you know, but like in the context, I think it's like phenomenal.
I think just to be clear on my opinion, I think like the editing itself is one of the highlights of the movie, but I get what he's saying. If I'm interpreting what he's saying right with like the flow of the story, there does seem to be something in the third act where it's like something else is supposed to happen, or like I want there to be something else.
I think what would have ironed this movie out was extending in the beginning of the relationship with him and the chick that he delivered groceries to the end of the second act, instead of just setting it up in the first act and then following through at the end of the film.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I think they should have come up with that just a little bit earlier, personally.
Right. I can see it
because the second kill, the home invasion, aside from the idea that dude was there, there's nothing different than that in his first attack.
Right. But I fucking love it. Like that's,
I know it's great. It's just, and he's not Jason. He's not Freddy. Like that idea hasn't happened yet. Right. He's not super fucking slick with it, man. He like struggles, dude.
It's so funny to me. I was thinking about this. Like it really reminds me of, and I don't know if this is just these couple movies and I'm picking little bits of it and I'm trying to build a trend in my mind, but I feel like filmmakers were more mechanical about their action sequences back in the day. Like think about Hills Have Eyes, where they're like running around out in the wilderness out there. He's like, oh, we're going to set some shit over here. Then we're going to run over there. And then we're going to think we're over here. And you know what I mean? Just shit like that. And then what's the other movie that it had me thinking of? Oh, Dawn of the Dead. It's the same thing in Dawn of the Dead. They're in the mall. And like, we're going to distract them over here. And then we're going to run up the stairs. We're going to push you through here. And it's just things you wouldn't see in a film these days. But
it's like, mechanical, right?
Right.
It's like that's that. Like when I say working man, like I know I mean like by hand and blue collar and shit, but I also mean like just very practical. Like he's a very practical filmmaker. He does not waste much, right? And I think that causes his shit. And I think it's the fact that he was doing commercials, like keep it tight, keep it simple, right? This movie was an hour and 34 minutes, and I bet that excruciated him to not be able or somebody not to trim it down a little bit more. But he always has elaborate ideas. His original script for Day of the Dead was like 200 fucking pages or 300 pages or some shit like that. Like that's ridiculous, man. Especially when you're making movies for like less than $1 million, you know?
I do know. Oh my God, my brain is not working. Oh, I do. Sal had a great comment. The whole talking on the radio bit, the whole calling into the radio station was a nice angle. That's like another thing that's just my favorite bit of the movie. It's a real clever way to get in exposition. You never feel like you're just getting exposition dumps, but you have Martin explaining to you his whole situation, which is another thing I really appreciate about this movie. Is like the way it functions as a serial killer movie. I saw a movie years ago that you can't find. You can't find this thing streaming. You can buy it on DVD, but it's Kevin Costner film called Mr. Brooks. It doesn't have high ratings.
Yeah, I know that.
Dude, I just love the way it dealt with like it treated being a serial killer like a disease, where it's like I'm feeling the itch coming and I've got to like go like release. Like Dexter kind of plays with that idea, but this is one of, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, is one of the earlier examples where they really do deal with being a serial killer like it's a disease.
Yeah. And there's that. So we talked about the religious, like superstitious kind of background, right? There's the superstition. By the way, it's badass though when he shows up and Colonel Sanders just goes, I'm going to save your soul, then I'm going to kill you. Right. Yeah. And like, it's great. And like, I still think this is one of the best endings to a Romero movie ever. right? Like he kind of repeats that ending in Creepshow. You know, if you right, was it with the right?
I just wish they didn't line the fucking steak up with his stomach. Like it bugs.
I know.
It's
Right?
one thing. Like okay, we can tell that the steak is behind the body and you're pounding it down, but line it up with his heart for fuck's sake. Why is it down by his navel? That drives me.
I know that does always bother me, but the way it happens, it's the editing that makes that scene work, right?
Right.
But also the idea that he's like, he's a young man or he's not, but even if he's a vampire or if he's human, he's a young man, right? And he doesn't know how to nurture a sexual like relationship with someone, right? And it's probably because there's a lot of shame in religious households about sex and stuff like that, right? So that's why that's part of the theme of the fucking movie too, is because he mentions that. He's like, it's just so hard and it's hard to relate to people. Like, dude, it's a movie like Martin is very authentically scary to me because Martin's the kind of character, like this is the study of a character that like, these are people that do really bad things in real life that have these kind of issues, right? I'm not saying we need to pity them or take their side, but like, and I'm not saying we need to like understand them or anything like that. Like Martin's a piece of shit, regardless if he's a vampire or not.
Right, but the movie never asks you to judge him.
No, it doesn't.
Which is what I kind of love about it. Like
it mostly asks you to judge how he was like. It asks you to judge his family,
right,
and how he was like taught, right? Because if you're told you're a vampire from the moment you're fucking born, Verno, and you're kept away from most society, you can't even speak to people. That's why the radio show call bit's so great, because it's the only time you get in Martin's head.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
the
almost
only
wish.
time.
I actually, I was gonna say, I almost wish that had happened earlier in the movie because we don't get those bits.
That should have happened earlier.
You think so? I mean, because it does like it's my favorite bit of the third act. That's kind of my other issue with it is like when he kills the bums and when they have like that action sequence and the chase and all that. That to me is like the climax of the movie, and that to me is my least favorite bit of the movie. And that's why I really just wish it was a better scene when he kills the bums. Maybe that would have worked out better, like a better set piece kill at the end to make it not it's the worst set piece kill. The first one is good. The one in the middle where he's running around the house is the best. And then it just like it fades off to the end. Because to me, it would be like fucking almost a perfect movie. You know what I mean? With for what it is. For what it is, if it wasn't for the third act problems.
I feel that.
But Lick, I wanted to ask you, man, like John Amplas, the actor, because I think I remember you not digging him, the character, the last time. I could be wrong, but I think I remember you not digging him. And if you don't dig Martin, you don't dig the fucking movie. You know what I mean? I love the performance. I like the character. I do sympathize with him. I immediately forget what he does to the girls when they show him out of the killer situations. And all of a sudden, he's just some fucking poor simpleton that's living this fucked up life. And I just forget about it because the movie forgets about it. But I love the performance. But what do you think of him?
Oh yeah, I was warmed up to him this time around. I think he did well. You know, he had a I don't know if he necessarily struggled with it. I feel like he kind of embraced the shit just a little bit. More than I'd say he embraced it more so than he struggled with it. But you know, he had a very good nuanced performance. He you know what, looking at it, I guess he was bothered by it because I was gonna say there are certain moments in the movie where it just seems like he's like hesitating, you know, before it's like you can tell there's got like this internal conflict,
right?
Internal conflict.
I agree. I don't feel like it's weighing super heavy on him. I feel like more like the position that he's in his life. He's almost there's more self pity than him feeling sorry about killing the girls. I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, no, I could see that, but you know, I liked it this time around. If you don't like his character, you really can't like the movie. But no, I will say that I enjoyed it. I can't articulate it any better. But
I feel you, Mr. Billups. Do you? Because I always ask this. This is what I always find so interesting about movies like this, and this is a very Hitchcockian thing. Now that I'm a Hitchcock guy and I realize some things, but like your alignments and where you're like you're not asked to sympathize with him, but you do. Like, do you end up sympathizing with Martin throughout the movie?
Yes. Yes. And I think that's okay. I think that's fine. Right. We can also then pull ourselves out of it objectively and look at Martin and go, Martin is not a good person. Right.
Right.
Is it his fault? We can study that. Is it his fault? We can decide that. Right. I think the more resonant and prevalent theme is what a form of belief can do to a young person. Right. And how that can shape and shift things even through rebellion, because Martin is a rebellious to the religious side of his family, but still somehow believes that he's a vampire. Maybe he is. You watch the movie and he is a vampire. That's a whole interesting thing too. Right. That's an interesting take on vampires.
You can decide to watch it and believe that he's a vampire and that he's 84 years old.
Yeah, you can do that. Or you could also just believe that he's not. You can believe it's in his head. You can believe he's a different form of a vampire you've never seen. That's why I think the movie works. It's because it was intended. It was made. I met John Amplis, and it was
proof.
He told me that was no. You can show it again. He told me that was the intent of the movie, was to not really have, like, it was up to you.
Right.
You could watch it 3 or 4 different ways if you really, really wanted to.
Which I love.
Yeah,
I really tried to like force myself to believe 100% that he was a vampire this last time.
Yeah,
and, like, it is a different experience. Like it totally could be. It works that way.
Yeah, it does, man. But like, you know, like there's the thing. Like, I get it, man. Some people, like, they don't like movies like Terrifier. You know, they don't like movies like Hills Have Eyes. They don't like movies where like in Hills Have Eyes, for instance, or in Terrifier, you kind of are on the side of the killer. Right? There's so many horror movies that are set up like this, where you want the killer to kill people. But even something truly heinous, like the rape revenge flick, Hills Have Eyes, those villains are kind of fun. Right? It's weird. But what's the difference between that and Bonnie and Clyde?
Or Darth Vader? Darth Vader is the best part of the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of the part. But because it has the nuance of really getting into the psychological and environmental factors of what produces these kind of people, movies like this, movies like Fade to Black, movies like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, these character studies on serial killers, right? And I do think this is another proto slasher, right?
Totally.
Everybody argues when the slasher started, right? You know, like there's the French film Diabolique, which I think is a good, that's a good argument that that's the first slasher, right?
That's 1960, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's a French film, right? But it doesn't have the tropes that are going to be made
right
in the 70s by movies like Black Christmas. And Martin doesn't play with those tropes either. And but here's the other thing. Martin is a precursor to movies like Scream, because it's self-aware of vampire lore,
right?
Self-aware of vampire fiction. That's why he puts on the fucking cape and the fake fangs and all that shit, right? And there was a third point that I'm losing.
It's coming. Right, it's coming. It's coming.
Precursor was created. Oh, and how clumsy the killer is. Because all the ghost faces are the clumsiest killers out there, right?
Oh my god, I'm just going to imagine that it's John Amplis under every ghost face from now on. This is one right here, and this would be, I think it came out the same year that Diabolique came out. If I can blow myself up, Peeping Tom. Speaking of Scream, it's like the movie that gets mentioned in Scream when they call it the first slasher film. But what's interesting, it is like this. It's a character study slasher. It's not the bunch of happy campers pick them off one by one. That's why I'm saying, like, this type of slasher and like a Friday the 13th slasher, they need two separate categories. They're both slashers, but they're completely fucking different films.
Yeah.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, you said that before. You're like, well, you consider that a slasher, right? And I was like, yeah. And then I thought about it more. It's like, fuck, do I? I don't know if there's enough in there. I guess, but it's such a different thing.
And what's great is that movies can be more than one thing,
right?
You know, yeah.
That's what point. Yeah. That's my favorite thing about this film. It's a great vampire film. It's a great slasher film, and it's a great serial killer film. I think it works almost best as a serial killer film, but it's a really fucking good vampire movie too. Like, I love the way it works with the lore, and it twists it and makes it fit a serial killer slasher movie. What up, bro, Joe? My brother from another. Appreciate you being in here. Chill out, man, you old sexy son of a bitch. I've actually never seen you. I'm just assuming. So station, everyone. I'm not watching this movie. till Robbie goes out on a date with first. Wait, let me make sure I'm reading that right. Hold on. I'm not watching this movie till Robbie goes out on a date with first, but one of the Ice Cream Man books sounds just like this movie.
I think there's a word missing.
Yeah, it's gotta be. There might even be a whole idea missing. But regardless, I appreciate you, my brother. I appreciate
Chill out,
you.
man is loaded.
So yeah, man. I guess we hit a lot of what I wanted to hit. Robbie, what's your favorite part of the movie? What's your favorite scene?
Oh man.
Come on, baby. Come on.
I love the ending. I know that it's in the stomach, but I just love like how abrupt it is. He has that like moment where he's going through the parade, right? And all the time I've been like, what's this parade supposed to represent?
The
And
parade
I don't
just
know.
showed up. They were about to film. Sorry. They were about to film. And they're like, Jesus Christ, it's getting fucking noisy. Can you have them quiet down? And they looked out and there was a parade outside. So they just said, fuck it. And they grabbed all the equipment and they went down there.
See, but it adds this moment of stillness to the movie, right? He's a frantic killer. There's a frantic, choppy editing style to the movie. It's a little imbalanced, but you get that moment. It's a moment of stillness. And of Martin kind of being like, ah. And then the irony of him being just so abruptly killed for a kill that wasn't his fault.
Right.
And it's almost like him in the parade is, oh, I'm free of this. I'm glad it happened. That's what he said, right? Like I'm free of the burden now, the attachment, because he's not used to it. He's scared of it, right? God damn, the movie's so fucking nuanced, man. So that ending is something so powerful to me. But I also just love it when dude first shows up and just straight up says, I'm here to save your soul, and then I will kill you, send you to hell or whatever the fuck, man. Like that shit's badass. I'll leave the fucking struggle kill in the middle of the film to one of y'all. But yeah.
What about you, Link? What's your favorite part of the movie?
We'll snatch up the mid kill. That it was interesting. Like we said earlier, he wasn't a powerhouse, unstoppable dude. He was like using guerrilla warfare tactics, like
right.
slash, run away, hide. Make him catch him.
What do you stick me with? What do you stick me?
Fuck,
with?
I gotta stick this dude a second time because he's jacked, man.
I love speaking of like the nuance of the movie, like the nuance of that scene is so fucking good. The fact that the woman is cheating on her husband, so they can't call the cops because the guy, you're not supposed to be here. And then they're trying to call the cops and he's fucking with him like that. That whole thing.
I love when that dude's at first just like, hey man, no hard feelings, man.
Yeah. I don't fucking know him. She was excellent. Their performances were really, really good. And this is the first time that we get a case of Savini neck. Like, so it's one of Savini's, one of his things where we got Kevin Bacon's elongated neck. We've got that scene in The Burning where the dude on the raft gets his neck stuck and he's got this crazy fucking long neck.
It's all the road to Day of the Dead, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all the road to that, man.
It's so different what he does in Day of the Dead compared to his slasher things. Like in the slasher, there's like 3 or 4 tropes or like moves that he always goes back to. Like the sticking people through the back of he's got like a couple tricks that he kind of does over and over. A slice of the neck, sticking something through the head. You know what I mean? These things where you're seeing half the weapon here and half of the fake weapon there.
He's like a dude that would put on Halloween haunts in his house or his front yard or some shit during Halloween and come up with a few gags, and he just kind of made a career out of it. But he developed those skills, and like I do think the peak is because he wanted to be an actor, he wanted to be a director. His career was kind of split for a moment, but it all leads up to Day of the Dead, which is his best practical effect work, in my opinion, man. It's 100%. That movie is so fucking gnarly, man.
100%. I'm trying to look and see if I had anything else that I definitely wanted to get to. I'd say I think we hit most of it, man, to be honest with you. Robbie, I was going to ask you, I feel like you're not, I feel like I'm going to annoy you by this, but the reason why I made this is because I wanted you to give me your top 5 George Romero films. That's part of the reason why I put this up here. Is Martin George Romero's best film? I will say no. It's in my top 3, but I want to know, Robbie, on the spot, what's your top 5 George Romero films?
All right, in Rockin' Robbie Live style, give me just a second here.
Take your time. Take your time. What are we doing? Writing a list or packing a bowl?
I'm writing a list. I'm thinking about this.
All right. All right. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here, guys. By the way, Stu, I've tried to get a rating out of Stu. He never gave me a rating. He just says,
To be continued.
I quite enjoyed this one, quote unquote. I quite enjoyed it. I said he's a sick fuck. What kind of sick fuck enjoys Martin? I'm on.
All right. Top 5 George A. Romero movies on the fly. Ready?
I'm ready.
Number 5, Creep Show. Fucking great movie.
Respect
A great
it.
tribute to EC horror, right? Stephen King, George A. Romero. One of his most successful films, a great film. Number 4, Martin. I'll put Martin there. Talked a lot about Martin. The more and more that I watch Martin, the more I love it.
Me too.
Number 3, Night of the Living Dead. Groundbreaking. Created a whole new genre of zombies fiction, right? Like it reinterpreted and created a whole genre of film.
And it brought horror into the modern age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's like the beginning, that and Rosemary's Baby, but even more so this because of the visceral like nastiness of it.
What, Night of the Living Dead, like what, 67, right? Is that
68.
what it is?
They're both 68.
I am it's crazy. Apparently people were like appalled at what they were seeing on the drive-in screens, you know,
I
like
believe it.
eating flesh.
Yeah.
Like I know we look at like Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and see the gnarly gore and shit, but like Night of the Living Dead was pretty gory for what it was, you know, and it's just kids getting together making a movie basically, man. You know, I don't think they're kids, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
Right. Well, that's one thing I love about this movie is this is the same fucking thing. They're older, they're 10 years older, but this is just friends making a movie. It feels like it's even smaller because of the crew. Like
that's why we love things like Evil Dead and like everybody's like early horror work, you know, like there's something about it, you know, like as much as we love Scream, there is a different element to movies like Last House or Hills Have Eyes because it feels like it's more of a like homemade movie.
100%, man.
Right?
What up,
yeah.
B?
So at number 2, I would put Night Riders. Night Riders is a movie I think everybody needs to watch.
Dude, damn.
And I'm surprised I've never done a movie night on it, but I think Night Riders is brilliant.
What's that link?
Oh, jousting with motorcycle gangs.
I got
like, and what's crazy is they live it. They live as like knights with this like King Arthur like kind of code, this crusader code of honor, right? And then it starts becoming popular and the news gets on their side and they want to create a show around it. And like, it causes this like conflict within the community. I know it's the most ridiculous idea for a movie, right?
And then Bigfoot shows up, but he's a little person.
I mean, but you can imagine it's the same thing. George A. Romero's drinking some wine, smoking some cigarettes, eating some good food. That's why George A. Romero's so good in this movie, because that's who he the fuck is, right? But like, you know, like, and just talking about like, what if like there were like knights, modern day knights, but on motorcycles?
It's on Tubi, by the way. It's on Tubi. It's got Tom Savini. You already said it. Ed Harris, Tom Savini.
Yeah, not a horror film, but a really great film, man.
It's got his ex-wife too. It's got Christina from
Chris Romero. She's in everything like throughout most of his career, right?
I didn't notice that. Honestly, no, I never noticed she was in his other movies.
Yeah, so I would put nice. She's in Dawn of the Dead at the very beginning with him. Like when they're operating the control room at the news station or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can even see her
even
now,
in small roles. She's in things. Number 1 though, Day of the Dead, man. There's something about Day of the Dead. It's the Tom Savini effects, the best of his career. I love the feeling of isolation and claustrophobia within that movie and the tensions rising. It's so ham. Everybody's so over the fucking top. It's like a high school fucking stage play at times, right? John Amplis is in the fucking movie.
Oh,
you know,
he's one of the scientists.
He's the doctor. He's the scientist. Yeah, not Logan, not Dr. Logan, but yeah. Plus you got Bub, like the best zombie ever. I mean, the performance and everything about it, the music by John Harrison, and then the fact that all these shitty ass people in this fucking bunker with these good people that are trying to do good things, right? And it keeps percolating and blows up so perfectly. And everybody that dies at the end of the film, you're cheering for these zombies to rip them the fuck up, man. You're just like fucking down for it. So yeah, Creep Show, Martin, Night of the Living Dead, Night Riders, Day of the Dead.
Boom. And what's crazy, Dawn of the Dead not making Rockin' Robbie's top 5 George Romero films would be on the top of a lot of people's list. I'm sitting here trying to think of what mine would be. I'll go in verse. My number one was I got to stick with Night of the Living Dead. I think I'd put Martin right behind it, in front of Dawn of the Dead and Creepshow, and then I guess, dude, Day of the Dead. The last time I watched that, I've heard you talk a lot of good things about it, and I've heard other people mention a lot of great things. Here's my issue with it, and I get it though. I get it. The movie starts at 10. All the characters are at 10. They're like going through the apocalypse. It's been hell. And they stay at 10 the whole fucking movie. And it's like, I don't know. That always bugs me, but it's one of those things I didn't like think about until afterwards. Like, oh yeah, that's kind of where they belong. That's like they've already been through the other movies and they're already at 10. That's why they're so fucking like annoying throughout the whole movie.
They're running out of food. They're running out of patience. They don't know what to do. They're not hearing from people anymore. Right. I like the progression of those movies. Night, the initial thing, Dawn kind of trying to deal with it and failing,
right?
And then Day being the failure.
That's right? The best. That's why it's one of the best trilogies. Like, yeah,
we
talked about it like before.
Land is like trying to rebuild. You know, Diary was trying to get back to basics. Survival was a cartoon, right?
See, I never saw the last two. Land is cool. I like what you said about Land. It going to like it feels different. It doesn't feel like the other movies because it's this big fucking Hollywood thing, but it's cool. I do like the ideas.
It's the first time Hollywood gave him money, really.
Right. I don't want to like the ideas. Oh, smart zombies. That's stupid, but it's well done for what it is.
And it's set up in Day.
Link, what's your favorites? What's your number one?
Oh, I don't think I'm comfortable enough answering this yet.
That's fair enough, bro. That's fair enough. I didn't want to leave you out, but I know you fucking watched Night of the Living Dead. You did that with me and Robbie. You've done Martin. Yeah. Have you seen Creepshow?
Yeah, I've seen Creepshow.
I should have asked the chat too. You guys have been
Land of the Dead's your era, bro. Land of the Dead's your era. John Leguizamo, Dennis Hopper. I love Dennis Hopper in that movie, man. He's so stupid.
I mean, Land. When you brought up Land, I was thinking that was pretty cool how when they like figured out they could like walk in the water and shit or whatever. The main zombie. That was
Big Daddy, cool. Right? That's his name, right? Big Daddy. I think it says it on his like. Yeah, that's dope, man. That whole movie is like post 9/11, ignoring the problem. Right, is what George A. Romero says. Is like, it's the idea that all right, zombies are out there. We fenced them off. Now we can live in this opulent, like high-rise building, but the infection's still going to get in. Right. So much video games, movie, just pop culture, television, Robert Kirkman. Like,
there's
so many people owe everything to George Romero. Like,
there's this interesting document. I think I saw this trailer for this documentary coming out, but it's supposedly George Romero was supposed to make this Resident Evil movie back in the day, and it was like set to go, and like some shit happened, and Hollywood fucked him over as they do. But I'm curious to watch it because it's sound like people were really excited about this because Resident Evil was based off of George Romero's Night of the movie, his Dead series. So
he was going to direct Resident Evil, and it was just he didn't want to compromise. He didn't want to compromise.
So crazy. I don't know if I've ever even seen Resident Evil. No, chill. Unfortunately, Romero did not do an episode of Masters of Horror. Which stay tuned. I'm pretty sure we'll be getting together in January or February at some point.
I think he had the new contract with Dimension Films or whatever, where he was doing Diary and Survival. I think there was like a conflict there or something.
Was Diary the one with the college kids?
Yeah, the initial incursion again, rebooted, and they're like filming it's like found footage a little bit.
Okay, yeah, that's the found footage one. I haven't heard great things of that one.
It's not
bad. But all right, hell yeah, man. Let us go ahead and rate this bad boy and get up out this bitch. Robbie, my brother from another, what are you giving George Romero's Martin?
Fuck, I gave it number 4 on this list, and I would give Day a 5. I'd give Night Riders a 5. Night of the Living Dead I give a 5. Creepshow I give a 5. So I guess I got to give Martin a 5 too. It's not a perfect film, but for what he had, what he tried to do, the whole team, John Amplis, like really coming in. Like, I met this dude, by the way. Like, look at that.
Prove it.
There is no
Prove it.
magic. There is
Prove
no
it.
magic. Really cool. I love that he signed it John J. and Amplis. Now I'm like, what's the J mean? Like I should have asked. But he was really excited, like just sitting at a table by himself. Like I walked up, I was like, bruh, Martin. He goes, Martin, because they were doing like a Day of the Dead reunion or some shit. And I was like, Martin. And he was like, he wanted to chat about Martin. It was great. It's great. That's a good list.
Hell, yeah. Fable says Creep Show, Night, Day, Dawn, Monkey Shines. I can't give you Dark Half, man. That's 6. You get 5. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna tell you what. Everybody that watches Night Riders after this stream,
I know that's the first
half
thing
of y'all are
doing.
gonna hate it. Trust me. Half of y'all are gonna be like, this stupid ass low budget shit. But like, trust me, it's like think about it, and it's really good.
It
but
has
a 5 for what it's doing. The performance of John Amplis, Martin is a 5 you digs for me.
Hell yeah. I just had it. I swear. I'm pretty sure it's on Tubi. Night Riders is, by the way. It's got a 6.3 on IMDb. It's respectable. It's fucking pretty respectable. 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Give it a whirl. 79% Google user rating.
I got that shit on Blu-ray.
I'll give it a like for Robbie here on Google. Just to see if I can bump it up. But all right, Steph, my brother, what are you giving Martin? Sorry.
All right, so still not one of my favorites, but I will say this watch grew on me. Not a perfect film. What film is, but there is something captivating about watching this tale of this socially awkward, maybe vampire boy. How it is kind of a cool story about how he navigates. It's almost like how teenagers are. It's like, everything, all these different opinions coming at you, and it's like you kind of start to feel I don't know. He isolated himself quite a bit. Oh, shout out to the music. I liked the theme song quite a bit. It was like very mysterious, but
it's like melancholical, right? It's like sad, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like, and a lot of just like a soprano kind of like, oh, dude, like the music's great.
I love it at the end with the radio guy talking over it, like the post credit bit, kind of. I love that. That's a great part.
So I'll get to it. I'll give this one a 3.85.
Getting more specific every show. I love it.
3.85. That's it wasn't my favorite, but I was definitely more in tuned to the nuances of this film this time around. And it's I got to give it credit for being such a unique take, and it does the whole Christopher Nolan thing where it doesn't give you the definitive answer. It's up to you to decide. Is he just a weird kid, or is he an actual vampire? It's all up to you. It's both answers are valid. So that's actually pretty cool. So yeah, 3.85 with room to grow.
The only thing I'll add is that we recently at PCP have discovered that there is a perfect movie, and it's Back to the Future. It's the first Back to the Future. That's the perfect movie, apparently.
Fair enough. I can see. I can see that. Back to the Future works. That'll work.
It's like if you just when AI eventually takes over the universe, and this is the perfect movie. It's Back to the Future.
All movies will be Back to the Future. All restaurants will be Taco Bell in the future. Fucking Sal.
That's Demolition Man.
Sal saying Tubi describes the movie as Martin believes he's a vampire, like it's deciding for us. I don't like that, Tubi.
That's just marketing, man. It's up to you.
Bro Joe saying I like hearing these kinds of movies from you guys because I'm squeamish when it comes to the horror. Well, good. Do not watch.
Because the guy that dresses as a clown literally probably scares more people than he.
Fable says he likes hearing us talk about the movie more than he likes the movie. Fable, not a fan. Not a fan.
But Fable's only watched it once.
I'm gonna give this thing I'm gonna give it a 4.69 because I love what the fuck it does. I already said it. The way it acts as a vampire movie, the way it acts as a serial killer movie, the way it's kind of a slasher movie, the way it's this character study on Martin. Like that's my favorite thing about the movie. Like Martin's the coolest fucking character. Not the coolest, but he's a really interesting character. He's so like whiny and annoying with the way that he talks, but he's just like so nuanced when he's doing the little magic trick. Something about that scene after we just saw, like the fact that, and I guess this is Romero and John Amplis, the way that we forget what he just did time and time again throughout the movie.
His
And
fascination with illusion and like the tricks behind the magic to prove like it's a secular versus religious thing at times, right? But then the other characters too, like the cousin story, the woman, you know, played by Christina, right?
Mhm.
She like her story is nuanced as well because it's
Totally.
like there, but it's like they don't
Did
go
she
over the
delete her?
board. And the same thing with the woman that's sleeping with Martin.
Right.
That's a very sad story, man.
Yeah.
And it's all between the lines, man.
The first time I watched the movie, I was annoyed by how big of a deal it seemed that the cousin was leaving. I was like, "What? She wasn't even a big deal," but it's like, oh yeah, it is just kind of like just put in there subtly throughout the movie, like her little story.
Oh, she left.
Yeah, she leaves, and then it
Oh,
reminds me of another thing that ties in with the theme of it all. She says a line at one point, like, "I'm almost starting to believe this vampire stuff. You can only hear that Richard Gere gerbil story so many times before you start
She-
believing it. You
Oh,
know what
yeah,
I mean?
Colonel
That kind of
Sanders.
a thing.
and
Yeah,
then there's the whole story about her relationship with Tom Savini, right? Because
Yeah.
like, and then she even tells Colonel Sanders, because I guess that's his name now. She even tells him like, "Oh no, we're not going to get married. We're not going to have kids. Don't worry, we're not going to even get together. Like,
You know,
he's my way out."
because she's a vampire too.
It's a town that's dying.
She's just draining Tom Savini, like she's vamping
Oh,
on him.
whatever. No,
You know what I mean? She
well,
is.
maybe a little bit, but like also like I love what you mentioned about the town, right? With the church being like, but like the town is dying, right? This is a town that's dying. This is George A. Romero also commenting on what's going on in Pittsburgh in 1977.
Right.
And we know the story of Pittsburgh now, you know, all those companies shutting down, moving to other places and stuff like that. It decimated this whole area. And George A. Romero's commenting on it. That's what the radio DJs are talking about. The beginning is like a bus strike or some shit like that,
Right.
right? Like, and George A. Romero always pushes that in. And it's crazy that that's still prevalent in what is a character study on a serial killer,
Right.
right?
See, I
Which he
think
doesn't do. He doesn't do those.
the first time that I watched it, and maybe it's just like now I get it more almost because it was explained to me, to be perfectly honest with you. But those scenes seem to be like, I was like, what the fuck are they? Why do they seem like such a big deal? Tom Savini talking with Colonel Sanders at the bar or whoever he's talking to. Like I didn't really get what it was there, but it's only really thematically relevant. It does play a role later about how he lies to him about the other girl's situation. But anyway, 4.69 banger movie that I just kind of love and adore it. It's just how fucking awkward Martin is. That's what it is. I hate to say it, but I love Martin. Like I want to hang out with that guy. I'd be like, come on, man, get your shit together. Quit drinking fucking blood.
He's like, no, I don't want a beer.
He even drinks blood so awkwardly, man.
Everything. Oh my god! Like the first time like he cuts the wrist and it doesn't work right. It was an accident. That little bit of blood that you see, and then he does it again and it gushes. Like the way that he's laying down, like the look on his face as the blood is spilling on him. There's something. He's so vulnerable throughout the whole fucking movie. Like I feel like after every take, he just cried for a little bit in a corner, like naked alone. But
Dude, Colonel Sanders did have a funny ass movie in this movie. What was it? Why can't I remember it? It's something like Butt something or something. It's just like, what the fuck is that?
I don't
I'm
know.
looking it up real quick, man. Y'all doing Fright Night next week? That's awesome.
Yeah, baby. This was voted in by the fans. I left it up to you guys. It was between a bunch of bangers. It was Lost Boys, Interview with the Vampire, From Dusk Till Dawn, 30 Days of Night, and Fright Night was the winner of them all, which I'm super happy about. Because that's what I'm
a great
saying.
follow-up to this movie, man. You're going through the eras, right? That's great, dude.
I love it. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be next Thursday. Stu will be back, and I'll be with the Missing Link to talk Fright Night. And this Sunday. I just finished this last night. It's my first watch through. Doing this with Peter and Eric, 3:00 Central Time on Sunday. Quite enjoyed this. Eric's seen this fucker 3 times, and I think this is actually the 3rd time watch for both of them. So they're clearly huge fans of it. I liked it, but I'll tell you what, I'm gonna be fucking complaining about the monologues. Just be ready for that. Mike the fucking monologue Flanagan, dude. It's insane. It's insane. They just go on and on and on. It's fucking bonkers. But 2 Sundays from now, very excited about this. Rockin' Robbie is going to join me again. We're going to talk about season 5, episode 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We'll do a little general vampire talk, a little general Dracula talk, because that's what that is. That's a Dracula standalone episode of Buffy the Vampire
The name
Slayer.
of the episode is Buffy versus Dracula, I believe.
Fuck yeah. Super
Yeah.
excited. So that'll be dope. And this is what we're doing. This is everything minus the Buffy that's on there. We've done Nosferatu. We've done Dracula 31 versus Dracula 1958. We just did Martin. We have Fright Night coming up. We're finishing off with Let the Right One In and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Very excited. I haven't seen either of those final ones, but I hear nothing but great things. Also hear great things about PCP Movie Night. Tell the people about it, Robbie.
PCP Movie Night. We got Big Lebowski coming up on Monday night at 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Mountain, and 6 p.m. Pacific.
You got Australia? Australia needs to
I
know
don't
their
know
time.
Australia, but it's probably the day before or some shit. I don't fucking know how that works. But yeah, Big Lebowski, we're spotlighting directors right now, and the Coen brothers always get spotlighted. So there's that. Very excited. Thank you for having me here to talk about Martin yet again. Got a great lineup. Very excited for Buffy versus Dracula.
Hell yeah, man.
That's going to be super fun. And the Fang Fest, man, it's so good. You're killing it. Y'all are all killing it. Steph, Verno, I love you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this station. Pop, pop, boom. And if you're not down with PCPX, I got 2 words for you. Suck it.
Oh, I was wondering the whole time, like, fucking keep leaving me hanging. What are the fucking words? What are the words,
Fright
man?
Night. Fright Night are the 2 words.
Fright Night. All right, hell yeah. We'll see you next Thursday for Fright Night. And again, Sunday, it's Midnight Mass. My brother Missing Link, I appreciate you. I appreciate you motherfuckers in the chat. Chill out, man, brother Joe. Easy. Fable, my brother. Sal, Rogue Collecting. Stu did not even come. Stu didn't even fucking make it in the chat. What a fucking... Oh my God. 2 Gun Pager, I appreciate
what
you.
a little
my brother.
fucking Martin Stew is, man.
Seriously. What a fucking dick. Taki, my brother. D dog, you son of a bitch. I appreciate you as per usual. You guys are the shit. And we'll see you next time.
Children of the night. What music, Amy.